The people on the left believe the people on the right are dumb. That people on the right don't have the ability to do math or are too lazy to be bothered to do the math. Well, in today's video, we're going to do it. We're going to break down the states. Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, the 5 states that mysteriously just couldn't get their votes in on time, or at least on election night. And then we're going to use 2 states as controls, Florida and California. California, of course, being a very liberal state, Florida proving itself now to be a very conservative state. But both of those states have larger populations than the rest of the others, meaning we would have had a lot more votes to count, but yet we got the job done. How is that possible? Texas got the job done that night. It shows that there was something afoot, and we're going to prove it today in the numbers. Now, the first big overall number that should make everyone suspicious is the grand total amount of votes cast, regardless of who you were for. 146.5 million votes cast. To put this in perspective, let me put this in real clear perspective. This is the 2008 election. Nearly 70 million people voted for Barack Obama. Only about 60 voted for John McCain. So 130 million people, 2008. Now, since then, we've had 3 elections, but the 2 prior to this, the numbers actually went down. Fewer people voted in 2012, and fewer people voted in 2016, then voted in 2008. So it's roughly a static number, somewhere between 127 and 130 million people registered to vote. And that's over the last 3 elections, not including 2020. Okay? Where did 15% come from? Because that's how many more votes were cast in 4 years. Well, when we look at the states that seem to have some strange problem getting their totals in, we can start to see a picture emerge. So let's get to it. Now, I have a lot of tabs up here, one for each state, to go through this. We have 2 states that we're going to use as controls, Florida and California. And then we're going to talk about the other 5 states, Arizona, Georgia, and then, of course, the vaunted blue wall of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And buckle up. This is going to make you lose your mind, because this is what they really thought they could get away with. Now, let's start with the liberal state of California, the most populous state in the union. We're going to use them as a control, okay, to show that, yes, of course, over a 4-year period, 2016 to 2020, if you have an increase in population, you should see a corresponding increase in the amount of voters. They're the largest state, so we should see, of course, the largest number. 2016, I'm going to use all Google information here. I'm not going to scrounge up some weird website that has odd information. It's going to be all Google. 2016 population. California, 39.17 million people. By 2020, 39.937 million people. Now, at one time they were over 40 million. The trend over a longer period of time has gone down, but over the last 4 years, they have actually gone up. So, what is that? It's about 767,000 people increase last 4 years in California. Now, what do we see as far as a difference in their voting? 876,000 people. And of course, we get that by subtracting the 2 population numbers. And then we can look at California on the election map, add up the 2 totals, meaning people who voted for Biden, people who voted for Trump, make that be one number, and then look back at the 2016 election and do the same thing with Clinton and Trump, and then subtract it out. So it's real simple. They had an increase in population by 767,000 people. Increase in voters, 876,000 people. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Nothing strange about that whatsoever. Let's jump to Florida. Now, Florida is quite a bit different. Florida in 2016 only had a population of about 20.61 million people, pardon me. But by 2020, 21.993 million people. So that's a huge increase. That's an increase of 1,383,000 people. And vote totals using the same technique of looking at the 2020 numbers, going back to 2016, counting up total votes. This is the difference. We had an increase of 1,819,000. So, roughly about 400,000, but you could explain that because Florida is a swing state and there's large get out to vote efforts all across in the swing states from both sides in this election. So not anything strange. Not anything out of the ordinary. Now, here's where things go crazy. Next state. Georgia. Now, red state, Georgia. You would think, wow, why did they have a problem? What's going on there? Well, let's look at what happened in Georgia. This is where things are just nuts. This is where the left has completely lost their minds. 10.3 million people in 2016. 10.6 million people in 2020. Okay? So roughly a difference of about 300,000 people. But if you compare how many people voted in 16 to 20, now this is Georgia. 957,000 more people voted in Georgia in 2020 than in 2016, outstripping their population increase by 657,000 people in Georgia. Somehow, they had 200% more people vote than they increased their population by. And once again, it's real simple. Go to any CNN, AP, Fox, whatever you want to, and go find the grand total amount of people that voted for Trump and Biden together. As you can see, that number's easy to see here. And then just go to Wikipedia and go back to 2016 and find that number and add those up and then subtract one from the other. Then do over the same period, 2016 to 2020, with the population of the state. 300,000 people increase in the state, but 957,000 more votes. Oh, but wait, it gets even better. It gets even better. You ready for this, folks? Hang on to your hats. Pennsylvania population, 2016, 12.78 million people. 2019, 12.8 million people. 2020, 12.7 million people. So really, they had actually a net negative. They lost population over that 4-year period. But let's just say it was static. We'll just leave it at 12.7. They started with 12.7, they ended with 12.7 million people. Guess how many more people voted in Pennsylvania in 2020 than in 2016? Yep, that's right. 781,000 votes somehow miraculously appeared in Pennsylvania with zero population growth. Some could argue population shrinkage. 781,000 votes. See, there aren't enough dead people to account for that, guys. There aren't enough people in the graveyards to account for that. That's why I said this was high school kids. This was kids that weren't qualified to vote, and it continues. What state are we in now? Wisconsin. Once again, let's look at the population. In 2016, Google fact, 5.773 million people. Wisconsin 2020, 5.86 million people. Okay, so they had a little bit of an increase. Okay, what was the increase? 87,000 people. They gained 87,000 people in their state, population-wise. Congratulations, Wisconsin, for growing your population. However, the amount of people who voted in Wisconsin increased by 453,000 people. 87,000 people over 4 years, increase in population, but 453,000 new votes. And I'll go back to it again. It's real easy. Use the official reporting numbers. Wisconsin shows you the grand total of both here. Wikipedia shows you the grand total of both here. Where are all these millions and millions of extra votes coming from? And it doesn't stop. This is Michigan. Guys, wait until you see this. Wait until you see this. You're just not going to believe it. This is how arrogant they are. This is what they think they can get away with. Michigan, total population, according to Google, in 2016, 9,951,000 people. Okay? 2019, 9,987,000 people. 10 million people, 2020. Okay, Michigan grew their population. Congratulations, Michigan. By how much? 49,000 people from 2016 to 2020. How many more votes were cast in Michigan over the same time period? 887,000 new votes. 887,000 more people voted in 2020 in the presidential election than in 2016 in Michigan, with only a population increase of 49,000 people. They cooked up 887,000 new votes. Where is it coming from, guys? And the last one, and this isn't as good because it's partially explainable, but Arizona, 6.941 million in 2016. Now, they were one of the most fast growing states in the whole union. 7.4 million people 4 years later. So they did have quite a few more. 459,000 people moved to Arizona, primarily, of course, from California and from around the union because it's a retirement state. See if I can move this over a little bit. But votes? 856,000 more? 856,000 more votes than in 2016? Really? That's 400,000 people. That's still almost 400,000 people. So now you're seeing the difference. If you add up all of these numbers, this 400,000, what's the difference in Michigan? 800,000. So there's 1.2 million. We'll call this 350, so 1.5 million. $781,000 invented in Pennsylvania. So now we're up to 2.3 million. 600,000 difference in Georgia. So about 3 million votes. About 3 million votes. And of course, what's the difference in the election? What's the difference in the election, guys? About 4. If you add up the rest of the states, if you add up I only added up the ones that seem to be a problem. If you added in North Carolina, even if you added in what they tried to do in Florida, they failed. This is where it's all coming from. This is where it's all coming from. They cooked up a bunch of votes across the country using high school kids to send in blank mail-in ballots. A lot of people say, high school kids can't vote, they're not registered. You think these people at these canvassing places that were counting all of these mail-in ballots, how does one check the registration? You don't. That's the point. You don't. And that's why they had to keep the observers away, just like Giuliani said. This is what's going on. And you can see it in the numbers. You can see it literally in the population numbers. Arizona, Georgia, and of course, the vaunted blue wall. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Those 3 states, not even remotely believable. Georgia truly is not believable. Population increase 300,000, but 957,000 new votes in Georgia? No, sorry. Not buying it. Pennsylvania, 787,000 with no population increase at all. Little tiny Wisconsin. It's clear. It's very, very clear that they think you're either too bad at math or too lazy to do it. Well, you don't have to do it. I did it for you. You can share this with whoever you want to and see if they can cook up some kind of an explanation for this. Where all of these magical votes came from. And go back and do your own work and show them 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016, and show them how the vote totals stayed the same. Actually, more people voted in 2008 than voted in 12 and 16 by about, a couple million people, one way or the other. It's a static group of people until this year. So anyway, I will leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.